Hello, and welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we are going to be looking at another members newsletter. Last week, we looked at the October 1989 members newsletter, looking at what they were doing for the month of October. And this week, we are going to be looking at November 1989. So what they were doing in the following month. So there is a little bit of context if you listen to the week before, but you don't necessarily have to. So let's get into what was going on in November 1989. So as you can see, the newsletter, it didn't really change the layout at all. We still have everything the same at top. The header is exactly the same. And then we start talking about the Victoria Cross exhibit that we mentioned in the last newsletter. So the Victoria Cross exhibit. Now on display are the medals awarded to William Merrifield during the First World War. William Merrifield, the recipient of the Victoria Cross, the Commonwealth's highest award for bravery. William Merrifield was born in England early in the 1890s. He came to Sault Ste. Marie as a young man and found work as a fireman with the Algoma Central Railway. When the First World War began, he volunteered, and as a member of the 51st Sioux Rifles, was part of the first contingent to leave Sault Ste. Marie for duties overseas. Merrifield was with the 2nd Battalion Canadian Expeditionary Force at the Second Battle of Ypres in 1915, when gas was used for the first time by the Germans. He next served with the 4th Battalion CEF in France and Flanders for close to 4 years. Twice he received decorations for bravery. At Passchendaele, when he was acting as a stretcher bearer during the 1917 fighting, he won the military medal. He earned his Victoria Cross at Abancourt, France, in October 1918, during the Battle of Cambrai. After the war, he returned to the Sioux, and in 1921 married Maude Bovington. The couple had 2 sons, Vern and Curtis, and 2 daughters, Rose and Patricia. In 1943, William Merrifield died and was buried in West Corus Cemetery with full military honors. His memory and his achievements are perpetuated by the William Merrifield Public School on Patrick Street and within the Merrifield family, which has established a tradition of giving their boy names which begin with the letters V and C. Because of the significance of the medals and their associated memorabilia, Lake Superior Arms have installed a special security system for this exhibit, which remains on display until November 24th. The museum sincerely thanks the Merrifield family for making these artifacts available this Remembrance Day display. And then we move on, and we are going to be looking at volunteers this month. So what were the volunteers up to in November? So they were continuing to classify photographs and slides. They have completed entry of information for all items in the education collection on a computer database. They did meet and greets with visitors and guided tours. They provided and installed spectacular Halloween decorations. They staffed the Sunday matinee at the Greenbelt Bingo. They served on the museum management board, prepared and served witch's brew and nibbles to hungry members of the murder audience. So that was the murder mystery that we talked about in the newsletter from October. And they were selling tickets for the Stop the Clock 50/50 lottery. And so here you can see their little, I guess, promo for that draw. They had the little clock tower here. You can sort of see a sleepy little clock up there. And it says, "The clock is running down. Where will the hands stop? Guess when the museum clock will go into hibernation for the winter." And so if you've ever looked at our clock, if you look at it right now, you will see that the hands aren't turning, and that's because we turn it off for the winter months, just because with the snow and ice building up, it could damage the hands. There's no sort of glass or face like over the clock to protect the hands from the elements. So that's why we turn it off, just so that there isn't that damage. And so they were doing this back then as well. And I guess this year they decided to do a 50-50 lottery as part of a fundraiser. So they were selling 1,000 tickets at $2 each. And then it says the proceeds in support of the museum renovation fund. And they said the tickets are available at the museum or from any board member. Be sure to pick up yours before November 25th. So they were shutting the clock down then. And that seems like a pretty fun thing to do. I hope that they had a good turnout, good interest. But yeah, that was definitely a fun, creative idea. And then here we have this sort of little invitation. And so you can see there's a nice Christmas border that goes around the invitation here. And it says, "An invitation to all members. Gifts." So this is one of the exhibits that we were talking about also in the October newsletter. Our Christmas exhibit will be installed in the main gallery during the week of November 13th. All members are invited to an opening reception to be held Thursday, November 23rd from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. Also available at that time will be an opportunity to assess the progress of the exhibit installation in our permanent display area, the Skylight Gallery on the second floor. And then we have a little thanks. It says, "Thanks, Culture and Communications. The Museum Management Board wishes to gratefully acknowledge support from the Ontario Ministry of Culture and Communications towards skill training for museum staff. Ministry funding helped offset travel costs and tuition fees involved when curator/administrator Judy McGonigal attended the Ontario Museum Association course Artifact, which was held this summer at Fort William." And so for those of you who don't know, the Ontario Museum Association, which is a big group that sort of helps to support all the museums. Museums can become members. People that work in museums can become members of that as well. And you're offered a lot of different support. They have a lot of different resources for both the institution and the individual. And what they're talking about right here is the course that they have. It's training for museum staff, and you have about 9 courses, sort of. They're in the process of changing it around, and I don't know what it was like back in 1989, but you have a series of courses which are kind of like doing a master's in museum studies. It's a really basic certificate that you would get. So if you're not able to do that master's in museum studies course, this is a great program that you can do and that the OMA still offers. So Judy was participating in that artifacts course, and in that course you learn about how to properly take care of artifacts, how to do accessioning, things like that. So you learn a lot more about that care that goes into the artifacts and things like that. And then we move on to Murder at the Museum. And so this is the murder mystery that we were talking about last week. So here we go. Murder at the Museum. Goblins, monsters, and special effects created by Heather Hanna set the scene for 2 evenings of dinner theater with a murder mystery theme. Michael Hennessy's Family Life Theater Group teamed up with Heather Hanna and the Holiday Inn for this successful fundraiser. Over 60 guests participated in the excitement on October 27th and again on November 4th. The museum share was over $1,000. Special thanks to Heather for her many hours of volunteer work. So it sounds that it was a pretty fun and eventful evening that we had here. And then we have help our volunteers trim the Christmas tree. To help create a Christmas mood for the gifts exhibit, volunteers plan to get together November 22nd from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. to create traditional decorations to grace our artificial, I'm afraid, Christmas tree. This event will not be all work. Seasonal refreshments will be served. And then we have acquisitions of interest. So what was donated in November 1989? It says donations to the collection for October. So I guess we're sort of looking for, what was happening in October. It says books and a ledger. And this was, from W.W. Howell, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. The original organ from Goulet Mission Church from Isabelle Lacrosse. A record player circa 1909, complete with needle and the 78 RPM record. Yes, we have no bananas. That sounds like a really fun song. This was from Lois Glode. Photographs of the pulp mill shipwreck, possibly the ship Frontier, and the 1909 accident at the Sioux Locks. And this was donated by Edison Danby. Then we have World War II shaving kit bag along with a kitchen utensil and a cherry pitter from Arthur Kerr. The Algoma Steel ID pin from Gerald Bouchard. Sports photograph of hockey player Roy Lessard circa 1924, and the Sioux Greyhounds 1927 by Mrs. E. Miller. A calendar from Cochrane and Dunlop Hardware Limited 1959 from Gladys Alton. A ledger from Moore Store 1939 from Paul Moore, and a wooden icebox from Lloyd Honey. And now at this time they were putting out the donors' names. That's something that we actually don't do anymore. We've updated our sort of collections and donations policy, and so we now keep donors anonymous, just with sort of growing privacy concerns. So if you're ever looking through the museum, you will never see donors' names attached to it, and if you do, that means that it was something installed before we had our collections information changeover. And here we also have this last little bit. It says, an unusual artifact. Recently, Susan Foster gifted the museum a sterling silver bracelet bearing a crest inscribed 49th Sault Ste. Marie HAA Regiment RCA 2nd Annual Ball. These bracelets were given as favors to the ladies in attendance at the artillery balls. Other such favors in the form of glass goblets also have a home in the collection. Can any reader recall what type of favor was presented at the inaugural artillery ball held on November 17th, 1950? Well, I'm not sure if any listeners can, if this was ever figured out or said, but that would be something interesting to figure out if we can find that out. So if I remember, I will try and get back to you with that answer. If I don't, you can always feel free to reach out to me, contact me, and let me know. Just a reminder to check into that. And I hope you are enjoying sort of this little series I have going on right now, looking back at what the museum was doing in the past, looking at these little newsletters that really provide a good glimpse into the museum's goings on. So as always, thanks for listening. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might like our blog too. Head over to our website, SaultMuseum, that's SAULT museum.ca, and look under Discover. You will find our blog, Museum Musings. We share short synopsis of influential people, historic places, and impactful events in our history. Pictures are always included, and you will be sure to learn a little something new with each post.